15 years, there has been an increase in the mainstream culture's desire to have your attention. There's a competition for your attention. There's a competition for our children's attention with the tech boom and the ability for those companies to use those kinds of ideas. They're after us. They want our eyeballs. They get money for the clicks that we give them. So you can choose not to, but in many cases you can't. And in many cases our children's parents don't. And so there's some invisible web of lack of attention, both for the children and for the parents, of what we might look at as the invisible, because that stuff wants to get right in front of your face and keep you from sitting back and contemplating the invisible. Right. Totally staged that. And of course, it gets worse. I mean, in the old days, there was always the salesman or the carnival barker, hey, over here, over here. But you could kind of shut that off a little bit. But then, right around the turn of the century, we had the introduction, a guy named Bernet, who was a nephew of Sigmund Freud. And they started to use knowledge of the subconscious to actually manipulate people's wills to do things that they didn't want to do. A famous example is, you've come a long way, baby. You should smoke cigarettes. And the number of women that started smoking cigarettes went through the roof. And I call that evil, manipulating people to do things that they don't want to do. I call that evil. And that's gone through the roof in the last 100 years. In the last 15 years, with the internet, it's gone crazy. So, not really a secret, but if you think about it, your attention is really all that we have. Your consciousness, that's who you are. And if somebody always is trying to get your consciousness to them, it's a violation. And if they're always trying to take your consciousness and bend it to their will, that, for me, that is a definition of evil. So we always have to rise up and fight that, right? And we always have to rise up and fight that with our children. They are being bombarded, either through their own misuse of devices, on our point of view, or through what I would call this, you've seen it, mother's on the phone, child's playing on the floor, just desperate for some kind of attention. And I think the other thing for teachers is that many of the old possibilities for teaching are going by the wayside. People are more distracted, their attention is more easily distracted. It's harder to sit through a story. You can't just say, oh, go read the chapter, or show them a little science chapter and say, oh, now you have knowledge and I've taught you. And of course, that was not really ever good teaching, but at some baseline, that's what good teaching rose above. And for many of us, that's what we grew up with, that kind of teaching, right? You want me to know this, so I'll read the book and then I'll bring back and tell you that I know the knowledge and we're all good and I'm educated. Talking concepts to children, there will be a 5% who will be right with you. Okay. They're ready to talk about the planets and the weight of the planets and all that stuff. And meanwhile, the rest are all checked out in the back going, oh, God. Chemical composition of igneous rocks. Oh, and so then you get into this part about the art of it is to review your day. What worked? Where did the excitement level fall off? Where in that point did they get disrupted, especially the younger grades? Where in that point of the circle did they start spinning out? Why did that happen? Not why did that happen, but just notice it. If you use the spiritual work of it, you do something called a ruksha, which is a non-judgmental review of the day that we could talk about sometime. But even if you look back on the day and just say, what was I doing right before he asked that obnoxious question? Because that obnoxious question was of course, a protest. This is not working for me, and I have an idea how to stop it. Keep it in mobile images. One of my favorite examples is, the sun with loving light makes bright for me each day, the soul's spirit powers gives strength unto my life. Or, the sun is a ball of hydrogen gas with fusion reaction with hydrogen 93 million miles from Earth. So one is what? It's an invitation to live each day in gratitude. That's what's behind it. Live each day with, there's warmth streaming down on you. The other is kind of a ball and chain. What do you do with it? It's already proven. It's not interesting. Okay, maybe it's interesting for a moment, but it's not lasting interest. It's not, there's no work required, there's no feeling. Or to say something like, teach critical thinking. Everybody should have critical thinking. I think it's big in the Common Core, I don't know exactly, but yeah. We should teach critical thinking. Children should be able to choose, weigh, measure. All of that is great. And the question is how. And Steiner says, and I'll quote, "The living truth is that the intellect is properly cultivated by a healthy belief in rightful authority, not by asking children questions. What would you do?" You know. And I don't know what the current state of developing critical thinking is in other streams. It'd be interesting to have that conversation. How do modern day educators say you should develop critical thinking? I don't know. You might know, some of you who've been through education programs, but Steiner says you cannot make people intelligent by cultivating the intellect as early as possible, but only by cultivating in them, when very young, the faculties which will later have them prepared to be intelligent. So for us that means openness, curiosity, a relationship to authority that's healthy, that's interactive, not you're the authority and I'm the audience, but it has something to do with our relationship, and especially in the Waldorf, a healthy body. Steiner's very clear. Spirituality, healthy intellect is dependent on a functioning body that is able to not be distracted. Well, I mean, he didn't say this so much, but extra lesson people would now say it's not distracted by cross currents and difficulties in their body. You need to be clear to the spirit, clear to your teaching, clear to the intellect. And I know out there, maybe not out here, but out there are scientists who are saying, how do we prove it? And the plain answer, and I think as a Waldorf teacher you really have to get comfortable with this, is the plain answer is that if we're talking about these invisible connections, that the very thinking that demands proof from us, the quality of thinking that says you need to prove this to me, will likely never be satisfied. You have to kind of get, you have to say, I'm not going to be able to field a study that says that being a proper authority develops the intellect. Can you imagine what that study, scientists among you, what that study would end up looking like? How long are you going to study the children? You know, from birth to 35, with somebody with the rightful authority in the same But I can't really get into the epistemology of what Steiner calls spiritual science. It'd be a lot for our lecture, but I can tell you that you can do your own observations. You can look and see what the effect is on your class of one way or the other. So you will notice a difference in engagement of your first graders if you say on one day, the princess was beautiful. On the other day, when the princess went out on the balcony, all the flowers turned and stretched their leaves up to look at her, and some even blushed. Her face was so bright. Right? Some kind of living picture, right? One, dead dry concept, Princess Beautiful. The other, mobile living picture that they can keep expanding on what is now. Look how effective. One is food, and one is a stereotyping judgment. Or later, let's say you're teaching Caesar. Caesar was a great leader. Intellectual concept. How about, okay, imagine the scene. Caesar walks into the room, and everybody steps a little bit forward. They wonder, am I good enough for what he wants me to do? Every breath wanting to volunteer, you know. So there's the picture. Show them in the picture, not in the, no, he's a great leader. Okay, got it, done. We're not teaching that content. It's useless for a child to know that Caesar was a great leader. It's great for a child to have a feeling that there was a man in history who rocked the world, who totally changed things and paid for it. Where was the balance? He had choices to make. He had a river to cross or not cross. And it was complicated, and the world's complicated, but still, there it was. Caesar was a great leader who led Rome in, 23 BC. The internet can handle that. Wikipedia is great for that kind of stuff. Don't think you need to do it. And then finally, I wanted to say a word about discipline. The contention is if you feed the children properly, they will be satisfied. They will be happy to go with you. They'll be happy to put up with you when you have a bad lesson, and they will be okay. I know it's complicated by children who are not actually available, who have physical perceptive difficulties. That's kind of a different question, and it's hard. It's hard, especially if your class gets out of balance and you don't have resources to help those children. But I would contend that there is a way to work with them that tells the other children, oh, the teacher is working with them, things are improving, we are all on the same page, we're playing the same game. I will put up with a lot of noise and disruption because it's okay. But if one of those three things isn't happening, if they're not really working on it, if they're not doing their exercises, if they're not involved, typically somebody who's disruptive is watching a lot of TV and movies and bringing in violent play. If they don't turn off the TV, they need to be somewhere else. They're not on the same page. Because if you let that condition continue, you get in trouble. But I think if you feed the children well and there's goodwill, that they will be satisfied and they won't be restless and they won't be looking for excitement. And I think it's also very important to remember something that Rudolf Steiner said in this day and age, which is the time has long since come for us to say, the children and young people we see do not show their true nature in what we see on the outside. There is a hidden inner life to which we must pay real attention. So how they behave, how they act, is not who they really are. In this example, he goes into a long story. Oh, you might have a child who's delightful and fine and easy, and they'll grow up and they'll be a nice, delightful person who doesn't actually do much. Whereas another person who's always rebelling, who's always fighting you, who's always out trying to cause trouble, will actually take on something, and if you've channeled it well and given them pictures to live into, will take on that spirit and become somebody in the world who changes something, who makes a difference, who stands up for the right. Hopefully doesn't become a master criminal, but and that's what we have to do. We have to become a little prophetic. When I was in training, one of the people in my training had a son who roared in his Jeep, and crazy. And he turned out he was in Navy SEAL training, and that was back in the day. I was a little judgy about that. Really? Your son's a SEAL? That was before my daughter joined the Marine Corps. So he comes in, and so that's all fine. And then 5 years later, I'm at a conference, and I meet his class teacher from when he was a little kid. He was never in line. He was always running ahead. He'd come around the corner. He was up in the tree. That's who he was. And of course, that's who he was. To say that I have an idea about who he's going to be. We talked about last night about control. Yeah, I want to control the outcome of these children so they're all balanced. You don't get that. But you do the best you can. And he was a pleasant, personable guy that was, fun to be around. But he liked risk or whatever. That's his destiny. Okay. Be the best Navy SEAL you can be. Teaching a blanket curriculum. If you think you're teaching a blanket curriculum, you're just going to miss so much. The children are not going to like it. Somebody's going to be protesting because you didn't feed them that day. If you can find something for everybody, and it doesn't have to be every day, all day, every day, a smorgasbord, but every once in a while, if you do your inner work and you really truly observe the children who they are, you will get those insights that feed them, and they'll be saying, I'm okay here. I like it here. I want to be on this planet. I want to contribute. I want to make the world a better place. And I would say, as far as Waldorf education, in my understanding, that is it right there. Feed them well.